Welcome to today's technique. Today we are going to talk about washes. For that I have here this ink. It is like contrast paint on the same level. You can of course use pre-made washes, but I like to use inks or contrast paints if you have those, because they are higher pigmented and give you a bigger flexibility in how intensive you want to paint. For that, we just take our ink and put that on our palette. And you can directly see, if we take this here into focus, that the wash is way more watery than, for example, a normal acrylic paint. And that is very nice if we want to just quickly brush over something. If I just take straight ink or contrast paint and we apply it on an area, if we take here, for example, this back plate, this one here, just paint that over. It stains a lot and it doesn't move. So what we do is we mix it with water mostly. Now I just take a clean brush so we can brush it off. And we directly see that the wash or our contrast paint is moving into our crevices. So what we do is we take a few drops of water and put them onto our palette, just like that. And then we take our contrast paint, also make a little puddle here on the side so we have as much control as possible. And then we take one of those and we mix it until we get this like watery consistency. And if we check it here on our water thing, we see, oh, that directly pulls out. And that is what we want. We basically want to have this pull out. And then we just go over our areas and we want to stop in our crevices. That means if we lift up our brush, you see, we leave some puddles here. We do that again, you leave some puddles. And we want to control where those puddles go, else we get a very coffee stainy look of our model. We get like stain marks and everything. And you don't really want to see those, so we just brush into the crevices. And that's why it's also nice that we have our blacks established again, because most of the washes are darker than the one we on the surface we apply. For example, here our leg. We can just brush that upwards into the armor panel or the trim, and that will then stain our surface. Why are we doing that? We're doing that so we create more volume in our paint. It stays in the crevices. That means those will be darker and it will look more, and not realistic, but it will pop out more. It will have more depth to it. And we want to wow people on our gaming table. This also, 2-in-1 step, helps us blend together our two layers we established with our wet blending or our layering technique, whatever you choose for your model. And that is just an easy way how you create nice looking armor. And if you're asking now, I don't know what colors to use for my wash, because many people have like a black wash or a brown wash for their models. You can also just take your normal paints and dilute them down into a very watery consistency. That means we can also take here, for example, our purple and just again take a lot of water until we get this consistency here. We can always check here with our paper and we see that it behaves the same as our ink. So now we know, okay, this now has the same consistency as that, and then I can just use this as my wash instead of the finished one. I just use the finished one because they are a bit faster to use. And they sometimes have different properties in them. That means they have like flow improvers in them or different like thinning mediums than a normal one doesn't. But if you don't have them, that is totally fine. You can just use the ones you have currently and just dilute them down. This also works totally fine. And this also helps then a lot with giving us a more three-dimensional look. And if you accidentally apply a bit too much, that is totally fine. You can just always go back with a clean, damp brush. We can just drag away the still wet paint. It's basically we are dunking our model into colored water. It's the best way I can describe it. And you always want to either go up into an armor panel or you want to go down into a crevice. For here, for example, we want to go up for our arm is there, our armor panel arm. So we don't stain the surface. Here is it is a bit tricky with those big legs, but we also we start down here and we go up. Because else we would leave, I'll just demonstrate it a bit. We will leave this puddle here and we don't want that. So we go up and here you see I have a bit too much. We take our damp brush and just wick that away. Clean our brush again a bit and then wick it away. And we just do that now for the entire model. This should go a bit quicker than, for example, the blacking out part, because we can just quickly apply that. And if for some reason the wash doesn't flow your way, just let it, and not let it dry, but like wick it away as best as possible. And then try to apply your base coat again. And then you can try to get your wash going again. I, for example, had when I started out a lot the fear, or didn't use washes a lot because I feared that they would not be able to be made back. So if I made an issue or have a stain, that I couldn't like go back a step. But you surely can. You always can go back. And this is something I needed to learn as well. So I'm here to teach you that it is totally fine to have a coffee stain here or there, but you can always go back with your normal color and just dab it a bit on there. You will not notice a difference. We can also go over here where we layered our paint on, where we didn't use our wet blending, and we can just put that on, and we directly see that our model is a bit more three-dimensional now. And we can take a bit of our wet brush and just dab it a bit away or into the crevices more. We also make here our arm nice. What it also helps, a wash, is to highlight our rivets. For example, we have here our back piece, and for that we can just dab a bit of our wash onto the rivets, and they should flow right around them, making them stand out a bit more, so it is again more highlighted and more 3D looking. We just want to kill two birds with one stone here. We want to blend our layers together with a wash and also make it look more deeper and saturated. That's why I chose the purple one, or I think it's called violet. Yeah, violet, to have as my wash color, because this one is darker than both of my other colors, meaning I can have this as my darkest shadow. So I'm working a tiny bit in a different way than you usually do with base coat wash highlight, I think is the Games Workshop way. I could be wrong, you need to correct me there. But I do a highlight and base coat in one step, and then use the wash to blend those together, and then we can go again with a second highlight. This just makes a more interesting looking model. You have more variations in your armor. You work a bit more with a light source, which I think you should start with working as soon as possible if you want to do later stuffs like object source lighting or reflections. So starting with that is a good thing. If we just think of our object being normally lit from above for the beginning. So we always think about light coming from the top, how it is on our painting desk. And then we can just let that dry. And see here, for example, it is a bit stainy. We can just take a bit of our normal paint, have it a tiny bit more diluted than we usually do. If we do the check, and then we can just dab this on, something like that. And we can later, when this is dry, go again over with a wash if we want to blend it, or we can just leave it how it is. And this is how we apply a wash, or this is how I apply a wash to a model. It looks a lot darker than usual, but for that we use our second highlight step and also edge highlighting step. So next up I will teach you how to edge highlight. So stay tuned for that one, and I will catch you in the next one.